Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Rachel Burns. I'm a certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst, and my firm is called True Worth Financial Planning, and I help newly single women get their finances straightened out after a divorce or after the death of a spouse. So this is my weekly live series where I talk about a different topic each month that I hear clients asking me about often. And so this week I wanted to address a really common question that I get, and that is, what's my highest priority? Should I be paying off debt or should I be saving for retirement first? And so that's a very common question. It's a great question. It's not a super straightforward answer. And so that's why I wanted to talk about that with you guys today. So whenever I start working with someone, a lot of times they have some sort of debt. They have either a credit card balance, they might have a student loan or a mortgage or an auto loan. It's very, very normal to have debt. But, a lot of times one of their goals is to pay off their debt, but then they have other competing goals as well, like saving for retirement, saving for their kids' college fund, whatever that may be. And so they're trying to figure out how to balance these two goals that are each competing for their resources. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So if you find yourself in that situation where maybe you have some extra cash, maybe you got a tax refund or you got a bonus or you got a raise or something, and you find yourself with a little bit of extra cash flow and you're wondering, okay, where do I put this cash? Do I put this towards debt and pay down debt a little bit faster, or do I need to put this into investments? This is how you approach that question. So you need to look at two numbers. One, you need to look at what is the interest rate that you're paying on your debt. So for example, if you have a credit card or an auto loan, you should know the percentage interest rate that you're paying, because that's the cost of carrying that debt that you're incurring. So you need to look at that number. And the other number you need to look at is the expected return in your retirement account or in your investment account. So that's kind of a difficult one to estimate, because you can't predict what the returns are going to be in the future. You can kind of look at what's happened in the past in that account, but what I would say is you can just use an average return for like what the historical S&P 500 index has done over the past 50 years or whatever. So just that index, for example, has had an average return of, I think, 10% per year. So that's somewhere you can start. Maybe your portfolio might not be 100% in stocks, so you might want to, use a little bit lower number, but let's just say 10%. Let's say you can reasonably expect that you'd earn an average of 10% in your retirement accounts. Obviously, some years you're going to make more, some years you're going to make less, but let's just assume 10%. So when you're looking at those two numbers, the interest rate and then the expected return in your investment account, whichever of those two numbers is bigger, that's the one that you want to prioritize with your extra cash. So let's look at an example. Let's say that you have some extra money, you have a credit card balance that you're paying 17% on currently. So credit card interest rates are super, super high. So you're paying 17%, and then you have an average return in your retirement account of, let's say, 10%. So you're wondering, okay, do I take my cash and do I put extra cash into retirement, or do I put it towards the credit card debt? Well, the credit card debt, it's costing you 17% on the balance that you are maintaining. So you want to put your extra cash, put it there first, because if you took that cash and put it in the investment account, the investment returns are not even going to keep up with the cost of that debt. So when the interest rate is really high, generally you want to just pay off that debt as quickly as you can. Don't focus on maximizing your retirement savings at that point. Just get that debt paid down so that you're not trying to dig yourself out of this hole. So that's the highest priority in that example. Let's say in a different example, let's say you have a student loan balance and you're paying 5%. So it's a much more reasonable interest rate. And then in your retirement account, let's say you're also, you're earning that same 10% return each year. So in that case, now your returns in your retirement account are higher than that interest rate that you're paying. So technically, if you have some extra money, you put it in that retirement account, it grows by 10%. it's only costing you 5% over here to borrow that money. So you're more than making up for the cost of that debt or that interest, and then some with the extra returns that you're having in that account. So technically, the mathematical answer is you should prioritize putting money in the retirement account in that instance. One thing to keep in mind, it's not so straightforward. So it's not like you're going to take the extra returns that you have in your retirement account and move those over and pay down your debt. You're not going to be, I'm talking about in the long run, you will end up with more money in total if you prioritize those retirement, returns, and then eventually you're going to have enough cash to pay down the debt. So it's not like you take money from one account, stick it in the other, but I'm just talking about like big picture, you will end up with more money if you do it that way. There's some instances where that rule doesn't really apply. And if you are someone who is very risk averse, so maybe you don't like investing, you don't feel comfortable investing, you don't want to invest in stocks, you don't like to see the value of your investments going up and down, someone like that, you would probably be better off paying down the debt first before you start adding more to your, adding extra to your retirement accounts, because having that debt balance might be something that stresses you out. And then having that money that's going up and down in the market, you might be better off mentally just by prioritizing paying off the debt first and then kind of maximizing your retirement savings. So part of it kind of depends on your preferences and your personality. And then there's another kind of exception to that rule too. And if you have student loans, so student loans are a very different animal than other types of debt. They're very complicated and they're very often misunderstood. And the normal debt pay down strategies that are recommended don't always apply with student loans. So for example, if you have a lot of student loan debt, and I'm talking about, many tens of thousands of dollars, if you have lots of student loan debt, or if you are trying to become eligible for student loan forgiveness, so if you work for like a public service type organization, or if you're applying for some sort of forgiveness, then you're not necessarily going to want to pay off your highest interest rate debt first. With student loans, there might be a better strategy than just paying it off as quickly as possible. Because if you're trying to get your loan forgiven at some point, you might want to be like minimizing the amount of money you're putting towards the loan because you want to get as much forgiven in the end as possible. So if your question is, do I pay off my student loans or do I save for retirement first? What's my higher priority? That is going to depend on your individual circumstances. So just to kind of recap, when you have this question, should I be paying off debt? Should I be prioritizing paying off debt, or should I be prioritizing investing? You want to compare the cost of your debt, so the interest rate that you're paying, versus the expected return that you would reasonably get in your investments. And whichever is higher, technically that should be your priority. Although there's some exceptions depending on your circumstances. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions about, how much to save for retirement, how to pay down debt, how to do those things at the same time, I'm totally happy to help. If you want to schedule a time to chat, I'm certainly happy to do that. Or if you have questions, or if you have other topics that you'd like me to cover on these weekly lives, let me know. But thanks for tuning in, and talk to you guys next week. Thanks.